What is up, sons? It is BlindRun once again with Son of a Tech, and I have a brand new head-to-head battle between the RX 470 4GB and the GTX 1060 3GB. Of course, I know now the market has changed enough to where the 470 is in an odd lower position, and we did kind of know it was supposed to not be a direct competitor to the 3GB, but it is fun to look at this for its 1080p performance and see where we're at. The game is going to be none other than Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered. So let's see how these cards do. Stick around. Alrighty, first things first, I'm going to say this. Do not go directly to the benchmarks and pause and mute the video. There are going to be some very specific settings that you're going to need to consider when looking at these charts. So to start things off, the test bench is going to be an i7 3770K overclocked to 4.4 GHz, mated to an Asus P8 Z77 Pro Thunderbolt motherboard, and it is running an 860 watt Corsair power supply with a PNY 500GB SSD. The benchmark is going to be right after the FNG mission, the first mission in the game, so this will be the second mission in the game. When you load into the second mission, you'll be in a helicopter, and you're going to want to start the benchmark right when you start going down the rope. As soon as you land onto the ground, there will be 3 guys in front of you. Shoot them from left to right, and then move over to the door and wait for Soap to open that door. Once he opens it, follow him through to the right and down the stairs, make a left and one more left, so 2 lefts, but 3 lefts would make a right, so not 3 lefts, 2 lefts. And then you'll see a drunken soldier that you will shoot in the fucking head and move on after that. Keep in mind you'll want to wait and let Soap go ahead and kneel and then push through, and you'll turn left and go down the stairs and walk to the manhole looking piece on the ground. Then turn to your left. Oh, we're at 3 lefts now. We have made a right. And you will see 3 friendlies come down from a chopper. After that, you'll move around to the left, sort of. You'll strafe over there and go under the catwalk and then turn right and continue to follow Soap. The benchmark should be 60 seconds long and will end shortly thereafter. Alright, now let's talk settings now that we've gotten the benchmark run out of the way, and we're going to go ahead and set everything to its highest available except for a couple notable ones. First off, this game used to be, or when it initially released, was a meant to be played game, so yes, it is an NVIDIA optimized game. This means that you're going to want to be careful about ambient occlusion. There is an option for HBAO+, and you can turn that on for AMD. Of course, you don't want to. I've seen it cause artifacting with AMD cards in multiple different games and other issues, so definitely turn that off. We're leaving it off for all of the following tests. The next setting is really interesting. It is fill memory, and what that's going to do, or at least what it describes it's going to do, is it's going to take whatever leftover VRAM you have in your card after you've set your settings and fill the rest of the GPU up for that. Now, for both of these cards at the current settings at highest, their VRAM is under the amount of VRAM the game is requiring. So at these settings, at 1080p even, the game states that it requires 5 GB of VRAM. Of course, the 1060 is a 3 GB and the RX 470 has 4 GB. So you would assume that this setting would not have any effect on anything. Well, let's get into it and talk about that. Jumping into the benchmarks on Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare Remastered at 1080p with memory fill option off. Here's where things start. The RX 470 4GB scored a minimum frame rate of 92 with an average of 114.4 and a max of 182. In this case, it completely slaughtered the GTX 1060 3GB with no memory fill on, which had a minimum of 78, an average of 98.3, and a max of 131. But what happens if we turn memory fill on? Here's where things get interesting. The RX 470 actually has a performance loss with a a minimum of 80 FPS coming down from 92, an average of 105.5 coming down from 114, and a max of 169 coming down from 182 with this setting off. The tables are flipped on the GTX side, where the 1063GB had a minimum of 70 FPS. Yes, that did come down, but look at this average. It goes up from 98 FPS with the setting turned off to a massive 124 FPS with the setting turned on, and 189 FPS for its max with the setting turned on. What the fuck is going on? Obviously, we can tell that this setting is not friendly towards AMD. While we did see performance increases if the AMD card has the available RAM, for example on the RX 488GB, which you can check out here, in this case when there is not available RAM, it works like you would assume, where the numbers are either pretty close or worse with the setting on. However, this isn't the case on the NVIDIA side, where it seems to be doing something more than what it states it does in the options menu. Now, I've tried to figure it out and I can't wrap my head around it yet. If you guys can figure it out, let me know in the comment section below. I find it very curious. It also must be an NVIDIA driven setting or optimized setting, because we don't see the same results between the cards. So this is important. This is why I said to listen before you looked at these charts. From here on out, we are going to be using the best settings for each individual card, which means for the RX 470, we're going to leave the memory fill off, and for the GTX 1060, we are going to leave it on. Now, typically you wouldn't want to do this, you would want to turn it all off, but because they are such drastic differences and opposite sides, I feel like this is the best way to compare these cards. I feel like it wouldn't be fair to either NVIDIA or AMD to leave this setting the same for both. So at 1080p, and you guys have seen this, but we'll put them up next to each other here real quick. We are going to go ahead and confirm that the RX 470 had a minimum frame rate of 92 with an average of 114.4 and a max of 182. While on the GTX 1060 side, we had a minimum of 70 with an average of 124 and a max of 189. Take this as you will, but in my opinion here at 1080p, the RX 470 is winning, and this is because the frame rates are a lot closer together and it only dropped down to 92 FPS, while the GTX 1060 seems to struggle keeping a consistent frame rate with drops to 70 FPS. Moving on to 1440p, we have the RX 470 coming in with a minimum of 64 FPS, an average of 81, and a max of 119, while the GTX 1060 3GB flexes its CUDA cores with a minimum of 78 FPS and an average of 96 with a max of 142. What I find interesting is that as the resolution went up, its minimum frame rate went up as well. I can only assume that this is because there are not as many frames getting thrown at the card as there are in the 1080p situation, allowing it to react more stably when it's processing it. Moving up to 4K, we have the RX 470 coming in with a minimum of 30 FPS, an average of 40, and a max of 56. While on the GTX 1060 side, we had a minimum of 36 with an average of 46.8 and a max of 60. So what's the conclusion here, guys? Well, obviously, if you're going to want to be playing 1440p and you're going to want to get in for a super uber budget on Modern Warfare Remastered, you would pick up the GTX 1060 3GB. Of course, you can still play 1440p, just not as well on the RX 470. Now, of course, this game is optimized for NVIDIA, so keep that in mind, but I would make this observation. The RX 470 is cheaper cheaper, and at 1080p seems to provide a more stable frame rate and seems to perform better than its competitor on the GTX 1060 3GB. I found all of these results super interesting, and I hope that we can discuss them in the comment section below. Throw your card at the game as well if you have either one of these cards, and let me know if you see any other variants or if there are any other settings that you find that may change these results drastically. If you want to check out individual reviews of these cards, they will be right about here, and you can just click on that if you don't mind. And if you want to see how the RX 480 8GB matched up against a GTX 1060 6GB, be sure to click up here somewhere. And until next time, I will see you next Tuesday.